through this session. So we're very fortunate today. Now that we've got everybody on here, I will get started and introduce you to these two lovely ladies, actually three lovely ladies. One of them is hiding. So we have Jackie Clark, who is PADS' breeding manager and oversees all things breeding, so our breeding dogs as well as our newborn puppies until they hit about the 8-week mark. And she also helps manage our puppy program. So Jackie has been with PADS for how many years, Jackie?
25.
25. So she was a wee little less. And then Lori Gunson is with us, and Lori was Brite's breeder caretaker. And the third lady that I was referring to is lying next to her on the couch. She was trying to show us, but this is the lovely Banff. So Banff is Brite's mama. So she's probably going to be very quiet through this interview, but I'm glad she was able to join us. We have another silent participant here, but a very important one, our volunteer Lanny. And we're very grateful for Lanny. She is the lady responsible for getting the words up on the bottom of the screen for those of you that are tuning in that need closed captioning. So thank you, Lanny. All right, so let's get started. Nobody's asked any questions yet. So those of you that are watching, go in and type your questions into the Q&A box, but I will start with Jackie. And so Jackie, tell me a little bit about Brite's litter and just what went into the creation of this little service dog that we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks.
So Brite's litter, as Tara mentioned, is out of Banff. And Banff is one of our breeding dogs who was out of Buffett and Santini, both parents that we owned in the previous generation. And so we had quite a bit of knowledge of her line going into it, and kind of within her line what we were looking to improve, and also within the breeding program as a whole, what traits we were looking to bring in to kind of complement what we had and to make some improvements in other areas. So at the time that we bred Brite's litter, we were looking to bring our confidence level up a little bit, and we were looking to reduce our cataract incidence overall in the breeding program, and to control allergies, which is kind of an ongoing thing within Labradors. So we reached out to a school that we partner with, Southeastern Guide Dogs in Florida, and asked if we could use one of their stud dogs to cover Banff. And his name was Herman. And so we got Herman in, and then we had a lovely litter of puppies.
Excellent. So, Lori, I'm going to ask you the question that I ask all of our volunteers and clients. What brought you to PADS? And how did it come to be that you were PADS volunteer and a breeder caretaker?
There was a family on my daughter's hockey team that had a PADS dog, and they were raising the dog, and Riley, and they were bringing it to the hockey games and hockey practices, and so we started chatting and became very interested. So I went to an orientation, and we were thinking about getting a pet dog, but neither my husband or I had ever had a pet dog and really didn't know about training a dog. So we thought there should be a good kind of leeway into getting a dog, and went to orientation and heard there was a litter of 10 puppies being born in November 1st. So we said we would be interested in raising a dog. At that time, well, they had mentioned that if you had a female dog, that there was a chance that she could become a breeding dog. And we kind of, because I'm from Calgary, Banff was a logical name that stuck with us, so we chose to take Banff, and the rest is history, I guess.
That's awesome. And what would you say was the most rewarding thing about being a breeder caretaker? Actually, maybe I'll give you a double barrel question. What was the most rewarding and what was the hardest?
Well, I don't know. It was the most rewarding for sure is just being, seeing her puppies, continuing now, watching and seeing her puppies go on to do and help people. It's been just through social media, being able to watch them and do what they were supposed to do. And I don't know, just being a part of the community, I guess, as well. And just being a part of my own community, because we became like a really popular house in the neighborhood. And people wanted to come over and see the puppies. And it was just, yeah, it was a really rewarding experience, just seeing what the puppies have gone and done. And then, sorry, the second part was...
What was the hardest part of being a breeder?
Oh, the hardest part. I don't know, the early mornings, getting up at 5 in the morning, cleaning pee and poop up. I don't know. I mean, at the same time, that was really a special time, because that was when we had like moments of us and the puppies. And I don't know, like sometimes seeing Banff in a like, but she was such a good natural mother that it wasn't really that hard. And she always bounced back after having her litter. So yeah, maybe the hardest was kind of the sleepless nights in the beginning, but you kind of forget about all that. It's like a baby.
Yeah, we get that baby amnesia, right? Where we
yeah.
how hard it was, and then we do it again.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's very cool. So yeah. Jackie, tell us a little bit about what the protocols, and you guys can bounce around through this too, if you want to go back and forth about what does it look like to rear a litter of puppies for pads? Spoiler alert, it's not the same as, just having a litter in your, in your living room and cuddling them for 8 weeks, right?
It is not. We start structured handling of our puppies at 3 days old with a series of exercises that even though they're still blind and deaf, it's designed to stimulate areas of their neurological system and their cardiovascular system. So their body and their heart that normally wouldn't be stimulated until they were much older. And so what that helps to do is create a puppy that when we put it in different situations, adapts more easily because the body is used to responding to stress. And then we start doing all sorts of different handling exercises with them. We do little massage sessions to get them used to being handled everywhere, which is the absolute worst, is sitting in front of the TV at night and handling puppies and calling it work time. We get them used to being in kennels so that when they go out to their new homes, they're used to sleeping in kennels for the evening. We get them used to kind of all different sights and sounds that we can. And so starting with things like just having big colorful things in the whelping pen with them when their eyes open around 10 days to later on having different experiences that they experience, different people coming in, people wearing, hats, masks, different noises, that sort of thing. Just so that even though they're in a fairly contained environment, the types of experiences that they're having are fairly broad. And because it is such a controlled environment, we're able to provide those experiences in a way that they only have good experiences. And so we're starting them out on the right foot.
And so what does that mean for you, Laurie? Like, what does that look like work-wise? Because, that all sounds absolutely I've been there as well, cuddling puppies on my lap, but tell people that are watching, time-wise, what does that look like for you and your family, and how involved was your family?
Well, it was for me, it was really nice that my kids kind of grew up with having litters in their in the house, and they got to participate that way. And then when the puppies were older, they would invite their friends over, and I just remember they would sing everyone would have a puppy, and they would sing nursery rhymes and do little massages and exercises with them. So it was very nice that my kids could be involved with helping, and they weren't as much in helping the cleaning and that side of things, but definitely they totally got into it. They would set up charts and they would weigh the puppies, and so it was great that way, I think. I think they're privileged to have had an experience like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the privilege of whelping one of Banff's litters, so I remember them sitting around the table coming up with names, and actually I think it was Brite's litter, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just.
My daughter got sick that night. Remember?
I do remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's always something going on. So
Yeah.
you can't just whelp puppies. You have to whelp puppies in a thunderstorm with no power or somebody sick or whatever. But it seems to come in cycles.
It's also, I mean, I had help. There was a lot other volunteers that came over, and so I was able to leave and go grocery shopping, or I do work part-time, so I was able to. So there was always that just having, asking people to come and help, so you don't get burned out doing it all yourself, and so that was really helpful.
Yeah. So we have a few questions that have just popped up. So I hope I don't butcher your name. I think it's Guila. Tell me if I've said it wrong. Is asking a few questions.
Julia, actually.
Julia, okay, I'm sorry.
I know.
Now that you've seen it. All right, sorry. And then, so how many hours do you estimate, if you can, go into getting a dog to successful placement? Oh, Jackie?
So I'd say
hours is hard.
Hours is hard because, I mean, breeder caretaking, during the day, you might work with them for 2 hours maybe, or 3 or 4 hours when you take the cleaning into account. But you're on call 24 hours a day with them. And the same thing in puppy raising is that there may be structured times during the day where you're actually working with the puppy, but training is kind of 24/7. And so, if you're out for dinner and the puppy is not going under the table the way it's supposed to, you're actually going to stop what you're doing. You're going to do a little bit of training to get the puppy where it needs to be and get it settled. So, it really is 24/7. Once they come into advanced training, it's about 10 months usually of 5 days a week, and they get about an hour a day with an instructor, and then additional time both throughout the day and up until about 9 o'clock at night with volunteers. So a lot of time by the time they go out to a client. The team training process is pretty intense. So yeah, all said, thousands and thousands of hours, but I don't know exactly.
Yeah, it's probably easier to just say it in years that, like, we typically put 2.5 years into each dog at a minimum before they're ready to go to a client. So the other question is, what point do you know if a puppy will go forward with training or not? I think, Jackie, I'm going to just kind of shape this because we are doing kind of a series over the next 4 weeks. So I would say, do you want to talk about, like, have we ever had a puppy that has not gone into puppy raising, that we've known right kind of at the early puppy development stage that they're not going to move ahead, and maybe just talk about how we make those decisions in general around?
I can only think of, so we just had our 124th litter born, and they are Banff's great grand puppies. Her daughter, Bailey's daughter, Heloise, just had a litter last Thursday. So over the course of 124 litters, I can only off the top of my head think of 2 puppies that did not enter training. And both of them, there was a medical reason for them not to enter training. One of them developed glaucoma at 4.5 weeks old, which is really, really unusual. And he went on to be adopted by one of our vets, and he actually contributes to PADS in a different way that's really wonderful. But Tara made censor me if I say what he does for our program. But anyways, there's an alternative therapy that we do that he donates to that.
He helps support the program.
He helps support the program. And the medical side of the program. And then we had another puppy who was in a litter that I'd reared that we had our eyes on from the time he was about 4.5 or 5 weeks old, and just something wasn't right. And it ended up that he had a neurological disorder. And so he went to live with one of our breeder caretakers who has his mom and lives a lovely, fulfilled life, but being a working dog was not for him.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in about temperament tests quickly?
Yeah.
And why?
Please.
So we assess all of our litters at 8 weeks old. And it doesn't matter what temperament scoring system you look at. If you look at the research, there has never been a puppy assessment that is any good at predicting what adult temperament is going to be. And so the reason that we use temperament tests is that they give us a snapshot of a moment in time, and where each puppy excels and where they're struggling a little bit and could use some more development. And so it helps us to then pair them with puppy raisers who may be more appropriate for them, and also to come up with a training plan that is going to help the puppy during that, still in that critical socialization phase, to kind of meet their potential by targeting training at the areas where they're a little bit unsure. So, we don't tend to look at their assessments at 8 weeks old and say, oh, that puppy is a write-off, because it could just be that on that day, that puppy isn't doing well. And we know so much is changeable before the time that they hit adulthood.
Yeah. And I think that, the question often comes up. And so the final question Julia had was, what happens with puppies that fail training? So there are a great deal of our dogs, industry wide. I think the average, if we call it success rate, is 45, 50%.
Even lower than that, I think.
Even lower than that?
50. Yeah.
So the dogs that don't go on to be working service dogs, and I don't want to call it a failure if they don't do that, because it would be like taking 10 children and saying, you're all going to be doctors, and if you're not doctors, you're failures. So our dogs that don't go on to be service dogs or assistance dogs in some capacity, the first thing we look at is re-careering them in some way. So one of those ways is our VIP program. So we place pets with children with disabilities. We also look at other types of work that benefits the community. And fortunately, actually, these two re-careers often look at very different dogs, so they're rarely in competition with each other. So we've had many of our dogs go on to do detection work with border services or private security or things like that. And it's very cool to hear the stories about how, these dogs save lives. They're at events and such, kind of seeking out, things like illegal drugs, etc. And so they're protecting our community and serving our community in different ways. So those are two of the ways. And then certainly we do adopt some out as pets as well. Typically they're adopted out within our community or connections within our community. But those tend to be few and far between that get adopted out to the general public. So the other question that Sarala had was, other than Brite and Tonka, did any of the rest of the puppies of the litter become service dogs? I wasn't sure if anybody would know this, so I looked it up. One of the puppies from the litter, Pez, went to Southeastern Guide Dogs, and I don't know if it just has not been updated or if this is kind of accurate, but it shows that she's still in training, actively in training. And then there were 3 other puppies in the litter, Etch, Lego, and Rubik's, that were all in training at PADS, and those dogs have gone on to other kind of career changes from our program.
Rubik's is the detection dog.
Yeah, Rubik's is a detection dog. That's right. So, and I believe Etch and Lego were both adopted by their puppy raisers. I could be wrong, but Lise asks, how does one become a volunteer with PADS? You want to take it, Jackie, or do you want me to take it?
You start the process and then I will jump in.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you our typical answer, and then I'm going to say everything is tempered by COVID right now. So typically we look for people to apply through our website as a first step, read some of the information we have there. There's an application form for you to fill out that just helps us get to know you a little bit better. And then we, from there, we have quite a comprehensive onboarding process that, and when I say tempered by COVID, a lot of our applications are currently closed, while Jackie works really, really hard to develop a digital format for our comprehensive onboarding process. So it involves training and interactions with our staff and orientation and all that kind of stuff, so that you know how to handle these very special pups. So maybe I'll let Jackie talk about what she's working on right now.
Yeah, so usually once you go through the initial online application process, you're invited to an in-person volunteer information session, and that would be some of our lovely colleagues kind of giving you a big picture overview of what PADS is, what it does, kind of what our values are. And then if you were interested in the puppy raising program, you would then start attending some puppy classes. And I believe our current format is you'd attend 6 puppy classes, and then you would be ready for your home interview. And then you would have a final orientation before being placed with a puppy. Our team's been working really hard. We have the volunteer info session online course done, and the final orientation course most of the way done. And so now we're working at the pieces in the middle. And the pieces at the middle are a course that goes a little bit more in depth into what it means to be a puppy raiser, so that people kind of know what it is they're signing up for. What's our training philosophy? How long are the dogs usually with you? You know, what are the different stages like in terms of raising a PADS dog? You know, how public access and socialization usually looks, that sort of thing. And then the next piece that I'm starting to work on, or that I'm in the thick of right now, will take the place of some of those puppy classes. And so it will go through, you know, some basic handler skills that really benefit people to have ahead of taking a puppy. And then we're going to replace the 6 classes with just watching 2 of our puppy kindergarten classes, which are currently on Zoom. And Susie is in the later stages right now of working through what a home interview on Zoom is going to look like, which luckily our advanced training program has paved the way, because they've been interviewing clients and performing team training on Zoom throughout COVID. And so they're able to kind of help guide us in terms of what has worked for them and what they found really beneficial. And we're hoping within the next couple weeks, we're going to be ready to start placing puppies with new volunteers again.
That's super exciting. So we're going to take one last question here, and this one's for Lori from Kylea. Lori, you mentioned you work part-time. Do you work from home? Do you have to book time off when the litters due? Is it hard to balance work and having a litter at home? What does that look like for you?
I don't work from home, so and yes, it was easier for me because I'm auxiliary at the City of Vancouver, so I was able to tell, so I had flexibility that way, and I was able to tell my boss, you know, that I wasn't able to work for maybe those 2 months, or if you really needed me, I could come in, you know, just to give me lots of notice so I could. And I did. I worked through, in some of the later litters, I did work. I just had volunteers. I kind of split up the day. So I'd have, they need to be organized, and you have volunteers come in that would do, I kind of split up the day, half a day, and then someone would come in the afternoon, and then until my kids got home, and then they were able to like cover when they got home from school. So yeah, you just have to, I mean, there was lots of people that were willing to come and help, and it was great. It worked out well. And I was actually able to help because there was other litters in North Vancouver. So I was able to reciprocate and be able to go and help when other breeder caretakers had litters in their homes.
Yeah.
That was most of the questions. Yeah. But I was able to work.
Yeah, it varies, but I think all of our breeder caretakers, with a few exceptions, work in some capacity, either at home or outside the home. I know Jackie and I have both hosted litters, but I think everybody does what works for them. I know for me, I couldn't, work full time and care for a litter. And so same as Lori, I had, a rotation of the same volunteers that I knew really well and I trusted in my home that would kind of come in, each of them would come in like the same day of the week or whatever it was. And yeah, that was fantastic. We've got a great little community. So, okay, we're going to take one more question and then we're going to wrap things up. Sabrina asks, there's a very distinctive smell in the house when a litter gets born. Is that right? How long does it last?
So there's,
Until they leave.
I'd say there's two separate smells. There's the smell when
Yes.
they're being born, and then they're starting about 5 or 6 weeks. There's a bit of a barnyard smell, and it really depends on how powerful your nose is. I know my family says they don't notice it. It makes me crazy. Some not our breeders, but some breeders recommend like HEPA air filters and stuff that help, or air purifiers. But yes, there's definitely a smell associated, and it is not a pee and poo smell. It is just you have a bunch of animals living in your house smell.
Yeah,
But
and
it
there's that
goes
initial,
away.
well, that initial smell, like when they're born from the delivery, I find that smell goes away once you wash all of that bedding. But it's interesting because yeah, the other smell definitely kicks in. But again, it really depends on your setup. Like I've had litters in 3-4 different homes, and some of my homes were fantastic. There was almost no smell. The one I'm in currently, but it's also in a room that has a lot of windows and a door straight to outside. Whereas, one of my other homes, I didn't have any opportunity to take the puppies outside at all unless I carried them down a huge flight of stairs. And that makes a huge difference too. My favorite house, I had it was all on the main floor and it was flush straight to outside. So basically from 5 weeks on, there was very little toileting happening inside on pee trays. So that made a huge difference. So, all right. Well, I thank you ladies so much for your time and for joining us. For those of you watching, when you registered for this webinar, you automatically registered for the series. So we hope that you will join us again next week. And Banff says hello to everybody. She's enjoying retirement. So Banff is now retired. And and thank you again to Lori and of course Lanny for captioning everything for us. And thanks everybody for joining in. We're really excited about the series. The last thing I will say is mark your calendars for November 29th, if I'm correct. That's a Sunday. Is our graduation this year. And so this series is kind of getting people excited about that. So mark your calendars. It will be a virtual event and there'll be more information in due course on our social media, etc. But save the date. And thanks, Jackie, for taking time out of your day. And Lori, really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.